Being able to feel comfortable expressing yourself, but also exploring.
Hi, I'm Carol Podell, and this is She Takes the Lead. Hi, party people. It's Carol. I hope you're having a really nice day. I love art. I've always been a creative person. I was a singer, I was an actor. I love interior design. I love fashion. I love beauty, really, in any form. I am completely void of the ability to draw. My fine motor skills suck. I can't even take a picture all that well. It's gotten better, but actually, my daughter, ironically, has a wonderful eye for a 5-year-old of how to take a photo, better than I do. So there's a certain mysticism around visual art, paintings and drawings and photographs. They've always spoke to me in a way that I couldn't really express. And I collect art as I can afford it. But everything that is in my home has great meaning to me, all the artwork. And I really believe in the power of that to bring people together and to bring lives more joy and more understanding and more depth. I love going to galleries. I enjoy museums. I enjoy art fairs. So today, my guest is someone who is really embedded in the art world. She grew up in the art world. She's been in this universe her entire life. And we get to talk about where she is and what she's doing and her perspective on art to the masses. Becca Hoffman is a veteran art world professional with a decade of running art galleries and a dozen years of art fair leadership. Becca was instrumental in rebranding and upgrading the Outsider Art Fair New York and building the Outsider Art Fair Paris from 2012 to 2020. From 2020 to 2023, she developed art fairs and cultural events in Aspen and Palm Springs for Intersect Art and Design. And in 2023, she launched 74th Arts, an art business to explore culture, connectivity, and commerce. She is now the co-founder and director of the new Aspen Art Fair, a modern and contemporary art, design, and cultural takeover set against the gorgeous backdrop of Aspen at the historic Hotel Jerome. She lives in New York City and Antibes, France, and I couldn't be more excited to share this with you. Hi, Becca.
Hi, Carol.
Welcome. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
I'm very excited to be here. It's a pleasure to be a part of your podcast, and it's been fun to watch the podcast develop.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'm honored that you're joining us, and I'm excited in terms of the timing because I know that you have a big festival coming up, and I'm super excited to talk about that and talk about how you got there and everything else. So can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I spent about a dozen years running art galleries in New York and Paris and London. I come from an art world family. Pretty much the only thing I've ever done in my life is working in the art world. The last art gallery I ran was Andrew Edlin Gallery here in New York. At the end of 2011, he went out to purchase the Outsider Art Fair. Started hosting our first Outsider Art Fair in New York, January 2012. And I found my love there in fixing and upgrading citywide cultural events. Over the course of the following 8 years, I worked and helped upgrade the Outsider Art Fair New York and built the Outsider Art Fair Paris. That journey allowed me to also discover a moment of recognition that the world is a small place and that I love doing business on multiple continents, and really appreciated the differentiation that existed in the business and cultural dynamics from America to France at the time. Then we arrived at this little thing called the global pandemic.
We did arrive there quite firmly.
I was actually in a desert camp in Oman when I accepted a role running a group of art fairs for two men, utilizing my skill set of rebranding and revamping citywide cultural events. Those events at the time were in Aspen, Palm Springs, and Chicago. I spent 3 years working on those events to realize that I really missed this global connectivity in my life. And I really wanted to rethink where I was at that time and how to proceed forward. And so, summertime 2023, I started my own business called 74th Arts, that is a boutique global art events company with two nomadic pop ups each year. By pop up, I mean that's not just an exhibition, it's not just an art fair. We don't just work with galleries, we don't just work with artists, we don't just work with designers. We're really trying to break down the molds of what the art world is accustomed to. Apart from those two pop ups, I'm one of four owners the Aspen Art Fair, which is inaugurating July 29th at the Hotel Jerome in the center core of Aspen. It is a little bit like an art, design, travel, lifestyle, luxury takeover. We are,
Wow.
it's going to be fantastic. And the fact that it's at the Jerome and with the support of the Jerome and the Auberge Resorts umbrella, it's huge for us. What's also interesting is it is both hotel rooms, 16 hotel rooms, and 18 built wall booths, like art fair booths. There are very few hotel art fairs that have both built wall booths and booths in hotel rooms.
Is this typical, or is this sort of like an out of the box decision around having art fairs in hotels?
So actually, the Armory Show here in New York was founded 30 years ago in the Gramercy Park Hotel. So there is a history of utilizing hotel rooms, but not necessarily hotel rooms and ballrooms. The reason that art fairs gravitated to hotel rooms and still do is because there's an intimate setting where one can really walk in and experience the exhibition of art and design in a synergistic way.
Oh, isn't that wild? I didn't think of that. Yeah, I guess it's like an intimate place. So you're experiencing it in a
Exactly.
way rather than like a big gallery where it's, I mean, nothing wrong with big gallery. I love galleries, but
Exactly. It's a totally different psychological moment of going into an intimate space as opposed to looking at artwork on a white wall and then having to vision what it looks like in your home.
And in Aspen, since this is your inaugural moment in Aspen, why Aspen? Like, why did you choose Aspen as your location?
Well, Aspen's my only foothold in the United States. And Aspen is a very special community. It was really founded on sort of philanthropic engagement in arts and culture. It has amazing thought leadership and intellectual engagement surrounding not just visual art, not just design, but music and theater and dance. And, we can think of Aspen ideas. We can even think about the creativity that comes from the Food and Wine Classic. It is a breeding ground to support and further thought. So that is one reason. The other reason is Aspen is a community that supports the arts. It's a community that really is stimulated by collecting, understands what it means to collect, understands the artist engagement, understands all of that. And it's different than, say, a Hamptons or a Saint Tropez. There is obviously that need to be outside and need to be in nature and hike, but people go to the music tent, people go to the museum, people go to Anderson Ranch for lectures. The pace of life and the cultural and philanthropic engagement is amazing. It's unparalleled.
Is that sort of like it's a known thing, or are you creating that? Are you using that as a jumping off board, or are you part of the creation of that?
We're really helping fuel and fill up that balloon so that it becomes more and more.
This company, 74th Arts, this would be considered a startup, yeah?
It's definitely a startup, and it's very interesting because in the art world right now, there's so much conversation surrounding mid-tier galleries. So not galleries that have 12 different locations and 100 different employees, but galleries that have been well established for a decade or so. What do they do now? Most of the major art fairs are owned by big corporations. How do they get their voices heard? So what we're trying to do is provide them with a platform for that. And we see with some of our galleries, they're engaged because they understand that we can provide them the opportunity for a network of collector introductions, a family of galleries who wants to hear and who wants to support, and an audience of curators and enthusiasts and avid, artistically engaged individuals.
Interesting. Your company is an international company. Tell me where those locations are. Do you have galleries from other countries coming to Aspen, or is this more US oriented? And then when you're elsewhere, do you focus more on those locations, or is it more global?
It is both local, regional, national, and international. So locally, we have 3 galleries. Regionally, we have 1 gallery from Denver. We have a series of galleries from New York, from Chicago, from Los Angeles. Then internationally, we have Italy and the UK and Cuba and Madrid. And then we have locations sort of around the world, from Asia to France and then Switzerland. So we want to make sure that although this is a boutique art fair, anybody walking through the doors really gets a global perspective.
Thematically, how do you link that?
What we look to do is to make sure that we have a series of contemporary art and design galleries showcasing both a mixture of known names and affordable discoveries, as well as secondary market galleries with brand name blue chip artists, whether that's a Picasso or a Wilfredo Lam or a Botero. We believe that Aspen needs both the blue chip quality artwork as well as the affordable discoveries.
I love that, affordable discoveries. What is the most interesting affordable discovery artist that you think is burgeoning today?
Oof, that's a hard question. I have to tell you, I never like to play favorites. I have a list, but never like to play favorites.
I understand. So let me ask you another. Is the art world in this kind of arena, is it highly more often female or male, or it's a mix? Typically, what is it?
When we talk about people that own citywide cultural events and art fairs, they tend to either be owned by corporations. However, this next tier down, they tend to be owned by primarily men and run by primarily men. There are select women who own and run them, but there is no other company that I can think of that is women owned that produces events in America, in Europe, and in Asia. So that's pretty spectacular. The thing that's been a fabulous journey is the process of learning to do business in everywhere from Singapore to Vienna to Milan to Marseille to Aspen, and what that looks like, and the cultural customs in each. In Singapore, the directness about the financials is amazing. In Milan, indirectness is.
So let me ask you, this is something that I always find interesting and I'm very vocal about, because I know just typically, even women that I know who are very, very successful do not necessarily like to talk about money. Have you come across that? I mean, how do you navigate that? Are you typically good talking about money?
Nobody likes to talk about money, in my opinion. Nobody likes to address it. Money, as we all know, makes the world go round. It's important, I think, to cut to the chase, because I think that makes a huge difference in business. If you're not going to align as to how much something costs or what everybody's going to get out of it, then why waste the time? Life's too short.
Amen.
So that's my opinion.
That's very straight up. You've been working for other people to open and start your own business and be your own boss. Tell me what this year has brought. Tell me a little bit about that.
Carol, I think United Airlines must love me dearly this year.
We'll put a plug in the show notes.
There have been weeks where I've been in Texas and then I've been in Singapore. There have been weeks where I've been in Vienna, Milan, France, and Aspen. There have been weeks where I've been on the West Coast and in Borneo, and during the same week. But it was interesting. I was having this work drink with somebody last night who said to me, "How did you identify yourself as a wanderer? And why do you think that you're a wanderer?" And I responded and I said, I believe that the world has so much to offer, and we always get into our own little box. So part of the goal of what this year has been is opening up those boxes. Now, I have never been one to sit idly in New York City. I've always been one to explore, but the wandering nature of the discovery of different cultures and figuring out how to connect those cultures through creativity has been a true joy. Has it been exhausting with canceled flights? 100%.
Yeah.
But there's certainly entertaining stories to tell. And I think I've really, over the past 2 decades, have really become a citizen of the world. And what my business is hopeful and is in the process of doing is really showing that an art business on a small scale can be a citizen of the world and doesn't need to necessarily have a home base anywhere. We can easily take our mobile devices and work from anywhere.
To transition to this, being your own boss and creating this, ultimately, I know you've been in the business for a long time, but ultimately you're creating this from scratch.
In terms of the shifts, I think it's been a learning curve. It's been a learning curve of everything from, oh, wait, I have to plan the event, program the event, curate the event, oh, and pay all the bills all at once and make sure that I'm doing all the taxes all at once and figure out how to do the taxes in Vienna and how to do the taxes in Milan and what that means and and the different dynamics of payments and working with people and all of that. But that, I think, is something that the malleability of being able to put yourself in different positions, whatever that might be, is paramount. And I will say,
and by the way, highly female, ironically.
That is true. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all in the personality business, whatever industry we're in. And so it's been a journey of new personalities and known personalities, easy and difficult ones.
Especially, I'm sure, when you're dealing with linear people and creative people, like the business side of it, as well as an incredibly creative group of people who that is their language.
Correct. It all comes back to the personality business. And how do you deal with the idiosyncratic moments of that?
We're in such a visual social media environment. Your brand is a huge piece of your startup component. Like it's an inevitability now. You can't really focus on a business without focusing on your brand. Like, tell me a little bit about your brand and what your plan is, your largesse as you grow.
Well, first off, let me talk about how many months it took me to make a logo with a graphic designer from a branding perspective. And it was a new experience for me, although I'd been involved in graphic design conversations for other people's brands. It was hard for me to figure out exactly how to transpose my vision into a logo. My logo is currently violet and red. It has, sort of very simple, pointy letters. Unfortunately, sorry, I don't really know enough about the different sorts of like sans serif and serif and all of that jazz.
You're not a font head?
I did try to learn about it when I was involved in this design process, but the goal was to make something that felt whimsical and elegant and global, but more European focused than American focused. And so the brand, so that's just from the visual perspective. Hey, I'm in the visual industry, so we've got to start there.
100%.
And then, when I think about the events that I'm creating around the world, those events are meant to be moments in which you leave saying, I had a meaningful interaction with painting, a meaningful interaction with a human. I had this amazing experience when we did this event in Vienna. In June, we had an event called the Shrink and ...
Okay.
Where you could be psychoanalyzed by a shrink and get a perfume.
Oh.
And so, because why not?
That sounds like my kind of event for personal.
For many reasons. Exactly. And so the idea is that you leave with a lasting memory as opposed to leaving saying, I went into a convention center and I saw a bunch of people, but how much do I remember? And so that's another very important, is those lasting connectivity moments for us.
So it engages the senses.
And we believe that creativity knows no bounds. So we work with chefs, we work with mixologists, we work with designers, we work with artists, we work with makers, we work with dancers, we work with filmmakers. I think it's important to recognize that everybody needs to have a platform to stand on. Everybody needs to have their voice heard. So that's really important to us. If we're thinking ahead to where we want to go, listen, we're never going to be an arts institution that's going to go into New York or London or Paris or Los Angeles or Miami. Those are markets that are too crowded. There's no need for a small boutique arts organization to go in and feel like the little engine. In the future, we're looking at Tangier, we're looking at Munich.
And you just finished one in Vienna.
We just finished one in Vienna. I'd love to think about the idea of Tel Aviv, but that might be down the road a little bit, and Bangkok. And so the conversations will continue. And what's interesting is when I started this, a series of people said, have you thought about Vancouver or Bogota, to name two, for example? And I kind of interviewed Vancouver and some people I knew there to see if I felt that they were ready, and they weren't. And that's okay. Maybe they will in the future. But you want to be in a city that welcomes building up the local and regional with a global feel.
As you said, also with the dynamic after COVID and remote work, it's such an incredible way to link the idea that everybody can have that experience. I understand you can see artwork online now, but it's very different to see a piece live than it is to see an image on a flat screen, even if it's a really good flat screen. It's very, very different. So it's kind of fantastic to have that understanding of how to bring it to a different kind of market.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember right as things were calming down from the pandemic, I went to the Met Museum, and it was such a shock to the system to realize how much I had missed in-person interaction with art. And
wow,
it is so important to have those opportunities and those avenues to connect, whatever that might be. And the nice thing, if we circle back with Aspen, is normally when you think of an art fair, you think of going into a convention center with a bunch of white-walled booths and a bunch of art. Our experience as an art design, travel, lifestyle, luxury, hospitality takeover does involve art in hotel rooms. It involves artist residencies. Zanelli Maholi, who is a South African-based artist who has a show on at the Tate right now and a show on at SF MoMA. Part of their practice is creating these stories of photographs in hotel rooms. And so they will have an artist residency in a hotel room. Then another artist, Cristal Lacouture, is being inspired by Colorado's silver boom and doing a whole thing on house jewelry. So not only do you get to see the art on the walls, but you'll also get to experience it. We have some great talks in different areas. So again, we're trying to stimulate the senses, which is really important.
That's very exciting. What was your gateway art? I know you grew up in the art world, but do you remember that first moment where you were like, oh, I get this, I love this, or this speaks to me, or, really feel it?
I've always been the classic extrovert. I feed off of other people's energy. It stimulates me. I'm capable of being alone with my own thoughts, but it's not my favorite place to be in the world.
You are not alone in that one. I know that for certain.
And I just have always, even dating back to college, I was a social chair in the house that I lived in. I've just always loved bringing people together. And I really found my voice and my personality and my place in the art world in creating citywide cultural events. I will say that part of that place also comes from the small business side of it. I'm not interested in the big business art fair corporate side of it. And so I think it's been an interesting journey and an interesting career, and every experience and every interaction leads you to something new. And so everything I'm building now, it's exciting to watch those dominoes lift up and fall down and see where they go.
What do you do for a creative outlet? I mean, I know you're super creative. I mean, simply by your beautiful scarf or necklace, however you want to call it.
This is a necklace that's from Borneo. It's a classic necklace from Borneo. I like to wear it more so scarf orientated. So, I was formerly trained as a photographer. I wouldn't say my photographs exist more than on the wonderful phone these days, But my creativity exists a lot in the kitchen, and it is a way to unwind and de stress. And then the other part of my creativity and passions comes from travel. I think creativity comes in so many different forms. It's about being able to feel comfortable expressing yourself, but also exploring and experimenting.
How do we find out about you? How we can be a part of it if we're local?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can check us out at theaspenartfair.org. If you go onto our website, you can check out some of our events. You can follow us on Instagram, aspenartfair.org. You can follow my organization, 74th Arts, as well, which will be posting live from Aspen. And then stay tuned for 74th Arts has a pop-up in Milan at the end of October on intergenerational creativity in art, fashion, and design, focusing sort of on cataclysmic women inspirational artists from a different generation.
Wow.
But for the meantime, if you're local to Aspen, please come out, come to the Hotel Jerome, join us to see the fair, come for a talk, come for a hike or a home tour, or just come and have a drink at J Bar and then take a look at some art.
So if you have any thoughts, tips, I do find that in this remote environment, people they're really embracing entrepreneurship, and the idea of authenticity now is really taking a foothold, finally, especially for women. But in general, people are really understanding how important it is to listen to who they are and what they are, and thus trying to create businesses or livelihoods around that kind of entrepreneurship. Do you have any tips or thoughts for people who are sort of starting out within that art world or on the business side that you would like to impart to some of the other younger newbies, or the newer rather newbies, that you've experienced or that you're coming across as you've made this really wonderful transition?
One, as simple as it sounds, go with your gut. Trust in your intuition. It means the world, and it's helped me in every business situation. Know who you're doing business with, know who you're talking to, know your goals, but be open to something serendipitous happening around an unexpected corner. And make sure that you feel confident to know that you're ready to express your message to the world. There are those of us that are entrepreneurs, and there are those of us that are worker bees. Make sure that if you're going to be the entrepreneur, you know why you want to be there. You want to get out of bed every morning, even if the day is really tough, but you want to get out of bed every morning.
That's great advice. And I think that's so true. People often have like an attachment to what is better than the other, but you really need to know yourself and who you are to really move forward in that way.
We spend a long time trying to figure out who we are, where we fit in the world, who we want to be, what message we want to send out to the world. Ultimately, we have our own little sphere of ourselves. And the better that we know that sphere, the more successful we can be in communicating that to the world.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. Also, if you want to keep in touch, go to Insta at About a Blonde or Facebook at About a Blonde Official. Also, you can sign up for my mailing list at www.aboutablonde.com. Have a great day. Mwah!